example, it's the same thing. If you go, practically speaking, you go to the West. You're in a country where people are Christians in name. They're Christians. And we're allowed to eat the food of the Christians. So, what do? Well, you know pork you can't eat, understood. But other than that, that which is not clearly forbidden in Islamic law, the other things, then you eat without going into asking the person when you're going to the restaurant. You have to go into the kitchen in the back and say, what kind of oil are you using, and this, and do you mix this one when you cook pork, and do you use the same fork or the same knife to cut the pork as you use to cut the... Oh, you can do that. I'm not saying you can't do it. And you can do that, and you can make life very difficult. Every time you go out, you want to eat, you have to be checking all these details. And some people have made a business out of it. You know, they have books where they've gone and they've got all these numbers, and you know, if you have this L number or C2145, if this is in your food and it's from this source and that source, they have huge long lists. So it's in your toothpaste, it's in a this and it's in a that, and so when you really look around, you find there's very few things you could actually consume. They've gone into details, and details beyond what the Sharia even requires. So where the Sharia recognizes, for example, that when you have a circumstance of vast halal material and a little bit of haram falls in it, that little haram or najis doesn't defile the whole. We know this. A little bit of najis doesn't defile the whole. There is a pond. Somebody across the other side of the pond is there urinating in the pond. Is the water now defiled? Can you still make wudu from that pond or not? Yes, you can. Even if he defecated in the pond, it doesn't change the validity of using the water of that pond. As long as, the principle they say, as long as the color hasn't changed, the smell hasn't changed, right? And the taste hasn't changed, it's still tasting like water, then it's okay, right? And that's why we don't have a problem with recycled water. Of course, people psychologically, they may have problems with it, and that's why it's not used here. For example, in Qatar, it's not used. Recycled water is not used for drinking. Recycled water may be used for watering the plants. You know, they've put it through the processes, and because they're going to use it to water the plants, they don't have to put it all the way through. They just put it enough through so it's relatively clean, right? But it might have smell and other things, right? So they use it for sprinkling and watering the grass and these type of things. But they only use pure water, whether it's from the well or desalinated from the sea, for drinking. And that is a personal preference. And I remember a couple of years back, you know, when in Australia this issue came up, because the amount of water, they were having a scarcity of water, they had to look at some alternative approaches to water. You know, because in Australia traditionally too, they were just desalinating and using the rivers. You know, the idea of using recycled water, they didn't really like this idea either. So they had to put it to a vote and explain to the people what the situation was. And there the people accepted it. Anyway, but the point is that, going into all of these numbers, if you find in the substance that you're going to eat, you know, it has this number, which number represents a few molecules of what may be najasa or haram, in a quantity of stuff that you're using, it is negligible. It is negligible. It doesn't count. It has no value. So those books that are out on the market, they've been produced, you can go to websites where they list all of these numbers. It is a waste of time. It is people digging into things that they really didn't need to dig into. It's not necessary. So Islam, you know, tells us basically to take things easy. If the evidence comes to you, it's presented to you, clearly this thing is not permissible, then you leave it. But when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was offered a bowl of meat soup in Medina, he didn't question, by a Jewess, she gave him, he didn't question, how did you slaughter this animal? You know, did you put it on its side? Did you say Bismillah? Didn't ask these things. She's a Jew. She offered food. He ate it.
Any person opportunity and he didn't reject?
No, I mean even when the we don't have an example specifically of Christians offering him. We just have that of the Jewish. But the Sahaba, in describing how they handle things in Christian areas, they took it in the same light and in the same way. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ